Hey everybody, NCS Master here again, back for another video, and going back to a style of video I used to do a little bit more often. Instead of a review, I'm doing a discussion video again, but instead of me just talking directly into a camera, doing it a little bit differently here in a podcast format, and I actually have a brand new guest here for the channel with me today. My good friend Nick. We met through Twitter. We've known each other for I'd say, wouldn't it be a few years now, you and I?
Probably going on 3 years, yeah. That's actually a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah. You may occasionally see us chatting about Sonic or something, generally. You may know him for, what's your account? Hearted Art, I think it is?
Yep, hearted_art. It's where I post a lot of my Sonic the Hedgehog fan art. I have a pretty decent following, but nowhere near Ryan over here with his 20,000 Twitter followers.
Okay, not at 20,000 yet, but the memes, my friend, they have power.
You're telling me that, Jesus Christ. How
Yeah,
many famous people with blue check marks have liked your tweets?
I have
I'm
no
pretty
idea.
sure a lot of them.
I have no idea. But yeah, we're here to do another discussion, and this one should be a pretty entertaining one because we're talking about video game remakes today, spurned on by a very hotly contested topic. I
I
fear
think that's
this.
putting it mildly.
I fear this video's dislike ratio, depending on what audience this finds.
You know, I wouldn't put it past super hardcore Sony fans to dislike bomb something. And that's coming from someone who really likes Sony.
Yeah,
Uh,
and as Nick just said, today we're going to be talking about remakes, and it's primarily about The Last of Us 1 remake, as that's really what got us thinking about this. And we've been talking about it ourselves, and we're like, hey, we got a lot of opinions on this. Might as well just record it and put it out for the world to see.
hey, I am ready to be skewered online.
Here's the thing, I have a reputation. uh,
Well, excuse me then.
no, I'm
But
joking.
no, in all seriousness, this is a pretty hotly contested topic, even right now on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Uh, sure we all remember when the thing got announced in the first place during the Summer Games Fest. People legitimately couldn't even tell the difference between the PS4 and PS5 versions.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna even start off with was so The Last of Us 1 remake, it has been a very hotly contested debate right now online, and it all stems back from about a month ago now, I would actually say, if not just slightly under that, when it was revealed as the big hot deal, not hot deal, like the big final
It was the big
surprise.
closing thing of Summer Games Fest, which,
Yeah.
I mean, can we just agree that's kind of a lackluster ending either way?
I mean, yeah, I mean, what really came out of substance out of that show other than Casey Jones in the TMNT game?
Hey, I heard that TMNT game's pretty amazing, so
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, that's something. But yeah, even the moment this remake was announced, a lot of people were not really feeling it. So I'm curious, like, what were your like immediate thoughts on it, Nick?
So I guess I should preface with my experience with The Last of Us. So I actually played the first Last of Us on PS4. I traded in the disc. I traded in a lot of stuff, but that's not a sign of its quality or anything. I liked the game well enough. Thought it was pretty good. Last of Us Part 2 is when it totally lost me, and I think it lost a lot of people. Let's be.
Yeah, a lot.
But that's not really what we're here to talk about. Um, when I first heard about this, my immediate reaction was, oh shit, the leaks were right, because this kinda leaked like 6 months ago. But that's a bit beside the point.
Yeah.
I was honestly just really underwhelmed because there's so many other first party Sony games that could have gotten the remake treatment, and we're choosing this of
Y-
all things. The
yeah.
original Last of Us came out almost exactly when the PS4 was coming out, and then it was remade for the PS4 a few
Yeah.
years later.
Well, remastered, and not even a few years later. It was like 1 year later.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier with those comparison screenshots, uh, okay, I should get this out of the way first. You can only go so pretty with a realistic art style, right?
Yeah.
I think somewhere in the PS4, Xbox One generation, we've hit pretty much the peak of this is the prettiest your game can look when you have a realistic, down to earth art style. The PS5 is certainly way more powerful than the PS4, but when you compare them just on a visual level, it's kind of hard to tell the difference
Yeah.
because you can only make something look so good.
Like some screenshots you can definitely tell more than others, but in a lot of ways this game it just it looks better, but the original still looks good as it is today, particularly with the remaster. I feel is a
Yeah,
big part of the problem cuz
especially on PS5 where the remaster can be played in like 1440p 60 frames per second.
yeah, and like because that's just one of the problems I think many people have with this remake. Because there's like at least a good handful that all spawn from like this remake being put out. Like I don't know if it's I don't know how much of a stretch it would be to say because there's been a lot of hotly contested remakes before, but do you think it's much of a stretch to say this is might be the most controversial game remake ever, at least in terms of a big game being remade?
Honestly, that's probably pretty accurate considering the fact that the original Last of Us was very successful and very popular,
Mm-hmm.
and that this is being billed as a big blockbuster PS5 exclusive.
Yeah, and even releasing it $70 at that.
I think now is maybe a good time to get into the price thing because I think that there's a discussion that's sort of not being addressed here. Sony really wants to push the $70 standard for big first party games.
Yes, they do.
Them and EA, and to an extent like Ubisoft, are really trying to push for that.
And Activision too.
Yeah, and Activision. They really want to push that. So I don't think the remake being $70 is proof that it's just a cash grab. I think that's just them pushing the standard that they want. But it
Yes.
is way more money than you should be paying for Last of Us Part 1 in 2022.
Yeah, especially considering that like this is a game that this is the third time it is being released in a unique format. Um, and that $70 price point is coming at the same time when you've got games this is charging the same amount for entirely new games like Horizon Forbidden West or assumedly God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, those are definitely going to be way more substantial than this thing is. And even then, there are some people who don't like those games being that expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I'm sure God of War Ragnarok is going to be beloved, no question. But I'm
Oh,
sure
it's
there's,
Game of the Year contender to be sure.
yeah, but I'm sure even people who love it are still going to be like, do we really need $70 for this?
I mean, I'll tell you right away, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart was one of my top 3 Game of the Year last year. And even buying that at launch for $70, knowing that I would really love it, I was like, this feels kind of skeevy.
Oh, I completely agree. I loved Rift Apart. Like it was probably like top 5 games for me last year, if not at the very least in the at least in my top 10. But
Mm-hmm.
I it did not feel worth $70, at least not to me, especially even when I played other games from that year. Like something that it was even higher for me that year, Tales of Arise. I feel something like that would have been more worth $70 than Rift Apart, but they still
Yeah,
charge
yeah.
60.
It's really hard to justify that price tag. Like, a game like Elden Ring that is potentially hundreds of hours long, that could have probably earned a $70 price tag, but it didn't. It didn't
Yeah.
charge.
Yeah, it's because it's really only like Sony, EA, and Activision that's really trying to do this mainly with the price point.
It's a matter of content, and I'm not sure if you actually read about this, but in a solicitation for The Last of Us Remake, there's actually going to be less intrinsic content in the remake than the original. In
Yeah.
the original, you could play as both Ellie and Joel with couch co op multiplayer. This isn't going to have that. That is intrinsic value that is being lost.
Oh wow! Like
Or, or
I knew the remake wasn't gonna have multiplayer because like I know the original Last of Us did have like I think it had like an didn't it have like an online competitive multiplayer or something like that? I'm pretty
I
sure.
think it did in a weird side mode, but no one ever talked about that.
Yeah, and like I know it wasn't gonna have that anymore, but I didn't know it wasn't gonna have this couch co-op multiplayer. Oh God, that's even worse.
Well, it's because I'm sure most people wouldn't even remember this, but they announced 3 Last of Us projects in a row at the Summer Games Fest,
Yeah,
and the first one was a 4-player competitive co-op Last of Us game that's coming out next year. And their
yeah.
explanation was, well, we didn't want to distract our multiplayer fan base with Last of Us Remake. We want them to focus on this new Last of Us project.
Yes, because Resident Evil 3 Resistance did so well.
Um, isn't there supposed to be like a Resident Evil 8 multiplayer thing that's like in limbo right now?
Something like that, but like we're getting a little off topic, but
Yeah,
yeah, it again with the price point with the remake, it just it's already asking a lot because this is asking more than what the game was when it first came out. Like
yeah.
this is
When it
the
came out on PS3, it was not $70.
this is the exact same thing people were giving Skyward Sword HD flack for. It's the exact same problem.
It literally is the exact same problem of, well, at least in Skyward Sword's case, it didn't take away content that was in that game.
Yeah, and also another key point that's another worth discussing with this remake, you couldn't already play Skyward Sword on Switch.
Now, that's something I did want to get into for the sake of discussion. I think that remasters, remakes, and even just straight up ports are best needed when you cannot play that game on modern hardware.
Yeah.
So something like Skyward Sword HD, I might not have liked the fact that it was $60, but it was a good thing because Skyward Sword was 2 generations old at that point. You can't stick a Wii disc in a Switch. But
Yeah.
Last of Us remastered for PS4 is perfectly playable on your PS5, and it's only like $15 or $20 on the shop.
Yeah, that kind of ties into cuz you mentioned like one of the reasons when you think a remake should exist. Like to me, I even wrote it down here. There's four main factors for why a remake should exist or is worth it, at least for me. It's a game. The game can be improved in major ways with the remake.
Mm-hmm.
The remake takes a style more so of a reimagining, like what Resident Evil and Final Fantasy have been doing in recent years. Um, Enough time has passed to greatly improve the visuals of said game, or
Okay.
the game is not available on the current systems. Last of Us doesn't check any of those.
Yeah, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. I can think of examples just from those things you mentioned, like Shadow of the Colossus for PS4 looked absolutely stunning and gorgeous compared to the original PS2 game. That checks the box of looking substantially better and not being playable on modern platforms. Stuff like Crisis Core remake that was just announced recently, almost at the exact same time as Last of Us remake, funnily
Yeah,
enough.
I'm gonna bring that game up a bit later too.
That looks absolutely stunning, has demonstrably better gameplay. They've been doing a bunch of gameplay videos that's like, here's how it's better than the original. And it's also being a reimagining because it's fitting into the Final Fantasy VII Remake timeline.
Yeah, 'cause
All of that stuff makes those remakes, in my opinion, way more valuable than Last of Us Remake could have been.
yeah, definitely. And because it's that last one in particular that like not available on the current systems. Like that's the biggest nagging one to me, especially with this remake is because like you can already play the first Last of Us on your PS5 right now. Like you could set this video on like on your phone down next to you and you could play The Last of Us remastered on your PS5 as you listen to this.
You
So,
want to know the best part? You know how Sony sometimes gives out free games during the summertime?
yeah.
I'm pretty sure Last of Us PS4 was one of the free games they've given out at some point.
Oh dear god.
Yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn, because I got that for free too.
Yeah, it's just like because the thing is to me is like you you're already barely doing much different with the last because we should say the Last of Us remake is a very straightforward remake. Like it's not adding new story
Oh,
elements, it's not like Final Fantasy where it's taking it in an all new direction. This is a it's basically taking the first game and giving it a coat of paint of The Last of Us 2 and adding some gameplay improvements from that game.
yeah, I think they talked about specifically how the aiming from Last of Us 2 is going to be implemented into this game.
Yeah, because I know one thing that people were thinking that like when because this game was like technically almost all but confirmed like over a year ago or something
Yeah,
like that. Like we have technically known about the existence of this for a long time. Um,
yeah,
and people were thinking like, oh, they're gonna remake the story so they make Joel look like more of a monster, so people aren't as mad when Abby kills him in the second game. But no,
I
uh,
people saying might add new story elements to be like, here's what Abby was doing during Last of Us Part 1.
yeah. Although they did already have flashback sequences in two that kind of covered that.
A little bit, yeah.
But
But
yeah, so
they
like,
should have said that this is going to be as straightforward, brick by brick, the same game, but looking better and playing slightly.
yeah, and the thing is, you're effectively asking people to pay like, given the price point of it now, like at minimum like $50 more than what you can get the remaster for nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
You
That is the hardest sell imaginable.
Yeah, you can get The Last of Us 1 remastered for like 10 to $20 nowadays. It's dirt cheap.
Or free when they decide to just give it out for free.
Exactly. And it's just like it doesn't feel like it does enough to warrant charging like a triple of like what you can get the remaster for. And like sure the graphics are a bit nicer, but is it worth practically tacking on the price of an all new game to the remaster's price? Is I don't think it's worth it.
Almost certainly not. I don't think so.
Yeah, and and I feel like one other highly contested point about this is that the game is by the time this comes out, the original game is only going to be like 9 years old.
Yeah, and the fact that it's playable on current platforms anyway, this should
Yeah,
be immediate choice.
yeah,
Which,
because
would
like,
you mind
oh, go ahead.
going into the story of how Last of Us Remake is even being made?
Oh yeah, if you want to detail that, you can go ahead.
Okay, so basically, if any of you have played a Final Fantasy game, this is just my best example, but if any of you have played a Final Fantasy game, you'll notice that during very important cutscenes, suddenly everything looks way better and way nicer. CG pre-rendered cutscenes. That's a big thing over in Japan, and there's a lot of studios that do that. Sony has its own version called Sony Visual Works, and they've been working with Sony since the PS3 era, basically. They've mostly been working on Naughty Dog games. This studio really wanted to make their own game. So they proposed to Sony, hey, why don't we make our own game? We have experience doing visual stuff, we have experience with cutscenes. And Sony said, we don't trust you to make your own game. Why don't you make a remake? And they were like, okay, that sounds great. Sony said, you mostly work with Naughty Dog, try making a Naughty Dog remake. So they said, okay, let's try remaking the first Uncharted game, Uncharted Drake's Fortune, or whatever it was called. And in my opinion, at least, that would have been a way more interesting and substantial remake, because that was like 2007, way earlier than the original Last of Us.
Yeah.
But Sony, no, that would be too complicated, that would take too much time. How about you make Last of Us remake so we can pair it with our PS5 version of Last of Us Part 2? And that's basically the entire reason why this exists. It is the backup plan of a studio that really wanted to make something.
Yeah, and that we can go into. I can mention the 10-year thing later, but that I feel is like one of the last major points of why people have an issue with this game. It's just that there's so many other PlayStation IPs that could have used a remake so much more than this.
Yeah, and even if what Sony said, they insisted they wanted them to make a Naughty Dog remake. The first Uncharted game, any of the Jack and Daxter games, people would have been universally way more happy with those getting really pretty PS5 remakes.
Yes, I can't agree with you hard enough. The one for me, like Jack and Daxter is the one that sticks out to me. It's like, why didn't you go with this? Because like I've already been questioning for a while, like why PlayStation has just left Jack and Daxter and Sly Cooper to just collect dust on the shelf, when Ratchet has more than proven there is still very much an audience for all these types of games.
Oh, absolutely. And even if you want to go for like less hyper realism, less hyper serious games, the Spider-Man games have been doing amazingly, and those are full of hijinks and comic book action and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So it's because you even remember, I think because I think I remember vaguely that like people were talking about a Naughty Dog game being remade before we knew it was The Last of Us, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and wild speculation at the time was, oh, it's going to be a Jack and Daxter thing because the Ratchet game did so good.
And also that just makes the most sense from so many different levels, but then no, it ends up being The Last of Us instead, and that just because like that's ultimately my biggest sticking point with this game, this remake. It's like you can like it and you can want to buy it all you want, and I'm not going to tell you you're wrong or you shouldn't be excited for this. Like, it's your life, it's your money, you feel free to feel how the way you feel, but you can never convince me there is no artistic reasoning for this remake to exist. None. It only exists for the sake of money and pushing further an IP that has already been pushed like crazy.
Well, according to the developer, as of a few days ago, a topical Twitter rant that guy went on.
Oh, yes.
Developers working on Last of Us Remake went on a big old Twitter tirade about how no, this isn't a cash grab. This is a passion project. This is something we've wanted to work on for years. This is the most meticulous and the most effort put into a remake ever.
Oh, buddy, just because you work hard doesn't mean it's not a cash grab.
Hey guys, maybe you should stop calling like horrible crunch meticulous work.
Yeah, I mean, apparently there was someone else on Twitter who said that, like, another one of the devs who said they actually weren't crunching on the remake, which, that's good, but also like you have a reputation for a reason.
Yeah, Naughty Dog has seriously bad reputation with crunch. I
Yeah,
remember during Last of Us 2, because that got delayed, remember?
yeah,
During the delay period, there was that sort of um, tweet that blew up where one of the people working on the game said, yeah, everybody is hating this crunch. We'd much rather be working on a new Uncharted or a new Jack and Daxter right now.
yeah. I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, which hopefully mainline Naughty Dog is actually doing something like that because, like I said, this is being made by a different studio.
Yeah. Oh, mainline Naughty Dog is probably working on like The Last of Us 3 or something like that
How would
already.
you continue that story at this point?
I don't know. I mean, many people felt they shouldn't have continued it after the first game. I know a lot of people felt a part 2 for that game was unnecessary at all.
Yeah, in that wheelhouse over here.
Oh, really? I did not expect that.
It was a pretty good way to end the first. Never mind. We won't get too deep
Yeah,
into.
yeah, yeah. To get back on topic, like there's like even because we mentioned Naughty Dog and like with specifically because this is a Naughty Dog game and we bring up Jack and Daxter and Uncharted because that would probably be the other obvious choices, but even
Mhm.
outside of that, there's so many other IPs that PlayStation themselves own that like would work so much better as a remake. Like why not do something cool and out of the box like Ape Escape or something like that?
Well, you mentioned earlier, like a Sly Cooper remake. That would be really fucking cool because that series has been dead since like what 2013.
Yeah, like Ape Escape, Sly Cooper, hell, RPGs are a really big thing right now, and
Gonna get a Dragoon.
yes, I was gonna suggest it. PlayStation's probably kind of upset that they've all but lost the exclusivity rights to Persona now going forward, given what's happened recently. Why not revive Legend of Dragoon?
Fucking let's get Legend of Dragoon and Wild Arms in here and all those obscure PS2 era shit.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Legend of Dragoon is PS1, and so is Wild Arms, the first game. But
Wait, like, well, there's a bunch more Wild Arms games on the PS2.
yes, that's true. But yeah, it's like like those four,
Could
and there's like
knock on FromSoft's door and be like, "Guys, remember Armored Core? A new Armored Core?"
oh my god. It's frustrating because there's so many other viable options that like even people who love the original Last of Us are heavily questioning this because and like I should state that like I would feel this same way if it was about a game that I personally love because I like just to be transparent, I don't like the Last of Us IP. There's a lot of things that I just do not like about it. I don't like how it's constantly said as one of the greatest games of all time when many of the reasons people claim it to be amazing are not the actual video game. I feel it embodies a lot of the biggest problems of Sony's lack of diversity in their exclusivities in recent years. But even with that aside, for me, if like say Nintendo decided to remake Mario Galaxy. I love Mario Galaxy. I sure as hell don't want a remake of that game.
I mean, especially considering that you can play Mario Galaxy on the Mario 3D collection right now.
Yeah, but like even if that didn't exist, I would not want a remake of Mario Galaxy simply because I feel those resources can be put towards something a lot more worthwhile that could use a remake way more.
Yeah,
Because
like
go
where you're
ahead.
coming Last of Us. I liked the first game, didn't like the second game, but I totally get where you're coming from.
Oh, with the points I mentioned about it, why I don't really like it all that much.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like it all comes down to why are we using these resources that could be put to something so much that would be way more useful and way more beneficial from an artistic standpoint? Because again, to bring up a point I was going to mention before, The Last of Us is only like 9 years old at this point, and as a result, we're putting all these resources towards boosting up a game that, like, yeah, it technically looks nicer, but I don't feel it's improving it enough to the point that it's worth it.
Wholeheartedly agree there. A game should not be remade 3 times in less than a decade.
Yeah, and people are quick to bring up, like, oh, well, Resident Evil 1 was remade only 6 years after it came out, which, yes, that is true, but I feel a big thing people are forgetting with, like, when they mention stuff like that, is that evolutions in technology for gaming from, like, generation to generation were so much more vast back in the day.
I was literally trying to get your attention to do a hot take.
Oh, go ahead.
The jump from PlayStation 1 to GameCube was way more impressive at the time than the jump from PS4 to PS5.
Oh yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. In fact, I was gonna say, I was literally just about to bring up. Sorry about your hot take.
Oh,
Yeah, I was literally gonna say, I feel that the PS1 and N64 to the GameCube and the PS2, the 5th gen to the 6th gen, that was the last real substantial jump we had from generation to generation when it came to video game graphics. Because, like,
yeah.
ever since then, like, 6th and 7th gen got a bit better, 7th to 8th got a bit better, 8th to 9 got a bit better, but it's nowhere near as large of a leap anymore, so you have to wait longer times for larger graphical differences.
Here's a perfect example. Resident Evil 1 to Resident Evil 4, and then you bring up the fact that a lot of people nowadays are saying Resident Evil 4 was so good it doesn't need a remake.
Yeah, and I'll bring up that game in a minute too. But yeah, I just feel like, because with the whole graphics thing, obviously comparing a later game in a system's lifespan to an earlier one isn't entirely point for point, because developers know the tech better by that point. But, like, even looking at PS4 and PS5 games, like, the PS5 does look really, really nice, but I don't know if I can say stuff like Astro's Playroom or Rift Apart look that much better than, say, Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us 2, ironically enough.
Yeah, it was definitely a marked upgrade, but if you don't know exactly what to look for, it doesn't seem all that substantial. The fact that a lot of big PS5 games are cross-gen.
Yes, even many of the big recent, like, PlayStation exclusives, like Gran Turismo 7, Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, that's gonna be cross-gen.
Miles Morales, even, and that was a smaller game, but it was still
Yeah.
pitched as one of their big frontliners. All of them have been cross-gen.
Yeah, which, granted, it seems like God of War Ragnarok is probably going to be the last one, because they've said, like, Spider-Man 2 is going to be completely PS5 exclusive. I think they've said the KOTOR remake is going to be completely PS5 exclusive, which, there you go, another remake that has way more of a reason to exist.
Yes, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 and Final Fantasy 16
Yes.
are also PS5 exclusive, so it looks like that's going to die with God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah.
But even then, the fact that so many big PS5 games could easily still run on a PS4 sort of shows the point.
Yeah, and so that's the reason why The Last of Us coming out, like, 9 years later, it doesn't look all that much better is the problem, especially because the remaster exists. And even then, like, even if it does look, because in some shots, I will admit, it does look noticeably improved, it I don't think the remaster has aged enough to justify it, because it's like going to a restaurant, like, oh, do you want this really nice steak for $20, but then you can order a $70 steak that is cooked slightly more and maybe has some truffle on top of it. It's like, I mean, okay, maybe that's a bit nicer, but, like, is it worth triple the price of what I
Hey,
can get?
He had to try this truffle. Yes, that is why I don't think that this remake has much of any intrinsic value beyond, like, die-hard Last of Us fans who do exist. I'm sure will buy this game in an instant.
Oh, they probably will for sure.
Multiple people, and we haven't even brought this fact up. If you have PlayStation Online, you get Last of Us PS4 for free.
Yes.
It's their 20 free games deal. So to most Sony fans, this remake has no value because they can play the PS4 version for free.
Yeah, exactly. I wholeheartedly agree, and I feel it's just made all the worse, especially because like it's something that not a lot of people have been bringing up. But I feel multiple other remakes slash remasters that have ironically enough been announced within like a month of each other and the Last of Us remake just kind of expose how lacking in substance and value the Last of Us remake really has. Because like the big three ones for me are the Resident Evil 4 remake, Crisis Core Reunion, and Pac-Man World Repack. Like, all of those offer much more value in a number of ways, have reason to exist than the Last of Us remake. Because, like, even something like Resident Evil 4, like, which was, ironically enough, also a remake we knew about way, way ahead of time thanks to leaks
Thanks,
and...
NVIDIA.
What?
I said thanks, NVIDIA. It was part of that NVIDIA leak.
Oh, yeah. We just gotta wait for that Final Fantasy IX remake now.
Ah, fucking tell me that's the only thing left. Even Kingdom Hearts 4 was announced before the Final 9 remake.
That and a remaster of Tactics.
Oh yeah, Tactics. But yes, even something like Final Fantasy 4, I mean not Final Fantasy 4, sorry.
That'd be a great remake.
Evil 4 remake had a little bit of controversy. There are way more people excited universally for that than Last of Us remake.
Yeah, because like if you remember, like because of course Twitter has the memory of a goldfish. When I mentioned it, people started blasting me for it. I joked about RE4 remake being kind of pointless, but people got to remember when the game was first talked about, like being leaked. A lot of people agreed with that sentiment because many people, and even some people now, still think Code Veronica should have gotten a remake instead.
Oh, absolutely. It fits the timeline better. That game is way less well known. And
it could be improved a lot more.
And yes, but about one of my arguments for why remakes and remasters should happen. You can play fucking Resident Evil 4 on your Samsung smart fridge. You can play that game fucking
It's only losing to Doom in the amount of ways you can play it.
Sorry, I can't play Resident Evil 4 on my fucking Nokia phone from 2000.
We just gotta wait for it to be loaded onto a McDonald's kiosk. Like you. Did you see that with Doom 1?
I did. That was fucking amazing.
That was beautiful. but
right. I'm told Doom can be played on anything.
Wait for the Apple Watch version.
Oh. But yes, back to what you were saying.
But yeah, with
now people are way more warm on the idea of Resident Evil 4 remake than Last of Us remake.
Yeah, because Resident Evil 4, like, while people are, still unsure about an RE4 remake because they are worried it's not going to be as hokey or jokey as the original, that it'll take out some of the humor and charm, it has more of a reason to exist on the fact that even though you can play RE4 original on basically any modern system, it's a reimagining, so it's giving itself more of a reason to exist by doing something unique.
It is. Even the marketing calls it part of the remake timeline, which I haven't actually played most of the Resident Evil remakes, but they're just different from their original versions.
Yeah,
they are clearly trying to be something different.
Yeah, 2 and 3 are fantastic, and yes, 3 is fantastic. I will forever stand by that. That game is massively overhated. I will forever stand by the RE3 remake being great.
But yeah, that's also a reason because the Resident Evil remakes are all clearly trying to be their own thing, separate from the main series.
Yeah, exactly. And
Not
also,
what Last of Us is doing.
and
Last of Us wants to be the barest bones, just make it prettier remake possible.
yeah, and also, RE4 is like 17 years old.
It is 17 years old. That shit was a fucking GameCube launch title.
I don't think it was a launch title. I think it came out a little bit. It was an early GameCube game.
It was definitely an early GameCube game because that was part when Capcom had that GameCube deal and released fucking every Resident Evil on the GameCube.
And then ported it to the PS2 a year later.
Worst versions of them. Cough, cough.
Oh. I mean, in some ways they kind of were.
Forever.
Yeah, but even the different versions of RE4, they give different reasons to exist. Like many people still swear by the Wii version being the best because of the pointer controls.
Oh yeah, because you can just get headshots literally every single time. The PC version, I'm pretty sure, has some exclusive downloadable content that no other version has.
Like at least the RE4 remake is doing something unique, but even if you don't want to do that, then you have the cases of stuff like Crisis Core Reunion and Pac-Man World Repack. And it was something I mentioned like the day after it was announced with Crisis Core. That game is getting a major graphical upgrade.
Yeah, they said it's a remaster, but you compare the fucking PSP original that looks barely as good as a PS2 game, and then they're showing you fucking Final Fantasy VII Remake graphics.
Yeah, and it's running really stably, and even the Switch version is more than likely going to still look great and probably run pretty well overall as well.
Yeah, they even mentioned that they were having a dedicated people make the Switch version.
Yeah.
Not only, but numerous quality of life changes have been made to Crisis Core Reunion that they've been mentioning in interviews and stuff. You can chain together combos, you can use your super attacks way more easily. The whole roulette system has been totally revamped. The game is now fully 100% voice acted. Actual quality of life shit is being added here.
Yeah, granted, The Last of Us is doing as well, but it doesn't feel to that same degree.
No, it doesn't. Because we're comparing the original Crisis Core was a PSP game. It was so limited by its hardware. But the original Last of Us was like the magnum opus swan song of the PS3.
Yes, it literally was.
The pinnacle of what that console could do.
And with Crisis Core, it's considered a remaster, and while it may not look as good as the Last of Us remake, the visual jump I think is way more substantial.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive.
Yeah, the one that go ahead.
Sorry. Like I said at the very beginning, there were legitimately people who you showed the PS4 version and PS5 version of Last of Us Remake, and people genuinely could not tell the difference. You show a screenshot of Crisis Core on the PSP to Crisis Core on the PS5, there is no earthly way you are confusing them.
Yeah, the one to me that was actually kind of funny how much of a difference there was. If you look at the scenes side by side from in the beginning of the game where it's Angeal is showing Zack an image of Genesis on a computer. In the PS...
and the fucking original was 16 pixels.
It's 144p compared to 4K HD.
Yes. You can barely tell the original picture of Genesis is supposed to be a person.
Yeah. Man, Shinra was running off a potato back then.
And it's holy shit, the remake timeline looks really nice.
Yeah, goddamn, that was 2005 YouTube quality right there.
One of the big things about remakes that I look for is not the pure hyper Not the pure hyper cutting edge, does it look like the best game humanly possible. I'm just looking for it to look substantially and noticeably better than the original.
Yes, I can agree there.
Like Pac-Man World, we were just talking about that a little bit ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's only, what, a PS1 game?
Yes, the original Pac-Man World was a PS1 game.
And then you show the Pac-Man Repack remake, and it looks like a modern, from the ground up, like, Switch platformer. It looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That is something you could not ever confuse, and it definitely looks like a substantial difference.
Yeah, and another big thing. Well, not only does Pac-Man World have much more of a reason to exist by not getting re-released anywhere near as often and not being available on modern platforms. Pac-Man World Repack is only $30.
That is also something that you have to bring in mind. A lot of remakes have been releasing nowadays that have been reasonably priced.
Yeah.
Like I said, Pac-Man Repack is $30. The Klonoa collection, which are 2 enhanced remakes of 2 old Klonoa games, that's only $40.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are some retailers listing Crisis Core Reunion for only $50.
And it'll be one that's Glitch City, but Sonic Colors Ultimate, that was only
that was only $40, yes, and we know the problems with that.
It maybe should have been
talking about the fact that it wasn't full price.
It maybe should have been 10, but
maybe it should have been free.
But
maybe they should need me to pay this piece of shit.
But yeah, to me, like that's like, why is The Last of Us Remake more than twice the price of Pac-Man World?
Simply put, it's just the incentive Sony has been pushing. That's what they want. They want the industry to go to $70 standard.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it's just it's something I hate, and because a lot of it just simply stems from the value that this offers, which to me is just, it's way too little. Like, to compare it to another game that I'm sure a lot of people might get mad at me that I compare these two. This really, on many levels, has the same amount of reason to exist as the Bowser's Inside Story remake.
Oh my god. I'm not disagreeing, but that was legit such a bad thing. That killed a company.
I know.
But, like, God, now that you mention it, it has all the exact same problems, doesn't it? It was more expensive than the original at release. You could play the original on the 3DS perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
It technically looked better, but most people didn't like the art style change. And what tiny changes it did add were not substantial enough to justify the increased price.
Yeah, and as a result... Oh, go ahead.
Or buying it entirely again if you owned the original Bowser's Inside Story.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely adore Bowser's Inside Story. I have never once thought about buying the remake. And
absolutely not. Same here. I still own Bowser's Inside Story on the DS.
Yeah, and as a result, Bowser's Inside Story Remake became like one of the worst selling Mario games of all time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like, what, 50,000 units? That's it?
Something like that. Yeah, it's just like... But I think The Last of Us it's gonna be different, though, because it's got so many diehard freaking fans for it that'll chill out, like, no matter the price point, because, like...
It's on a console, it's a hot console exclusive, it has a really dedicated diehard fan base.
Yeah...
Is it bad that I want it to fail like Bowser's Inside Story Remake just to teach them a lesson?
Oh, I want it to fail too. I absolutely want it to fail, but it's not going to, which is...
Oh, it's definitely not. It might... It's probably not going to make Last of Us Original or Last of Us Part 2 sales, but it's going to make sales.
Yeah, and I feel like, and again, I feel like I should restate here. This isn't because I'm like against remakes or anything, because like I know that's actually sort of a contingent of the gaming community that there are some people who just outright hate remakes, period. There are people who do not like remakes, but
Hmm.
I do genuinely see the value in them, but they need to pick and choose what to remake better is the main issue here, because it's something that people who follow me on Twitter have probably seen me mention a number of times. I really think the game industry needs to start embracing remaking bad games, or at the very least flawed ones.
Yeah, one of the main things that you cited for the purpose of remakes is turning something that maybe wasn't very good into something really good.
Yeah, exactly. Like sticking on Bowser's Inside Story, um like I absolutely adore Bowser's Inside Story, but I think Partners in Time should have been the game that got remade way before that one.
Oh, absolutely. Because that was the weird black sheep of the series. It's the one that had the most problems. That
Yeah.
way more than Superstar Saga. Well, maybe not Superstar Saga, but it deserved it way more than Bowser's Inside Story.
Yeah, Superstar Saga at the very least you can justify that made it so you could play the entire Mario and Luigi series on a 3DS.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. That's why I stopped myself. But
Yeah.
yeah, Partners in Time could have benefited so much more than Bowser's Inside Story did.
Yeah, I have never I have never once considered buying the Bowser's Inside Story remake. I would have been there day one for a Partners in Time remake.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Partners in
And
Time is still to this day the only Mario and Luigi game I have not played in any capacity.
it's the only one that I haven't beat,
But yeah,
which show. But anyways,
yeah, it's and sticking with the whole bad games thing, like unironically, one of the most popular games to remake by fans is Sonic 06.
oh, absolutely. There's that giant '06 project that's been worked on for like what 3 years now.
Yeah, like
Is actually turning one of the worst Sonic games ever into something that people are like, why can't Sega make Sonic games like this?
yeah, and even outside of that, people have gone and made small tweaks to 06 many times throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes to show that like people see value in remaking lesser games, because you could take something that maybe not as many people know or has problems that could be ironed out and make it something truly great. But the problem is the game industry more often than not will just stick to remaking super well known and beloved IPs because they already know and love it so much, so they'll just buy it again.
Hell, Nintendo almost got that right. Remember, before the 3DS Metroid game came out, there were tons of fan projects remaking Metroid 2 of all things.
Yeah. And
And
then
then, of course, that became the whole another Metroid 2 remake, and that got taken down because Nintendo was like, oh shit, people actually want to play this? Let's actually make it.
yeah, they went ahead and remade Metroid 2 for the 3DS, which that was really really cool to see.
It was, because, like you said earlier, it ironed out and fixed all the issues that the original had and made it substantially better.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is also just down to again what we mentioned before, tech differences, and a lot of that with especially with like Metroid 2 being on a handheld, like going back to The Last of Us not even being like 10 years old yet. Kid Icarus Uprising is only like a year older, and I think a remake of that is way more warranted.
Oh, absolutely. Not only is that a series that hasn't had any new entries, isn't playable on modern hardware, it was really held back by being on the Nintendo 3DS and being a launch title, no less.
No, not a launch title. It was again another an early title, not a launch title.
Hey, if it's within the first 2 years, I'm calling it a launch title.
That doesn't count.
Shut up, I'm not wrong.
I mean, you are, but okay. Go ahead, make your point. Make your point.
Yes, Kid Icarus Uprising. That is a remake that people have literally been asking for so much that Sakurai himself commented on it a few years back, if you remember.
Yeah, I do remember that. And like, you know, there was that rumor of I don't know if it's still going on, but like Bandai Namco remaking like an action game from Nintendo. And Kid Icarus Uprising has been like one of the most talked about potential games for that.
Oh, absolutely. And tons of people really want that to happen because, like I said, it has all of the values that we talked about with why you would remake something. It was held back by the original hardware. It could look way nicer on modern hardware. You can't play it on modern hardware. It has all of those things, and it's also something that people really want.
Exactly. And it's just like again, the game industry needs to embrace more remaking the games that could use vast improvement instead of just again going for what is a cash grab. The Last of Us remake is a cash grab. I'm sorry, it just is. There is no, again, I said it earlier, no artistic reason for this to exist.
Yeah, there is pretty much no reason that within 10 years you have to remake a game 3 times.
Exactly. As much as it may, as you mentioned, may upset the developers for doing so.
If you're so thin-skinned as a developer that you go complain on Twitter, I'm not going to be super sympathetic to
Ever.
you. And to backpack off what you were just saying, I started this podcast by admitting I am a huge Sony fan. I also don't see any intrinsic value in this project, and I wish they would have done something else.
Yeah, you're way bigger on Sony than I am. Like, I'm a lot rougher towards them than you are, which part of it is their fan base, but
Honestly. But
but
yeah,
yeah,
even I don't see a reason for this thing to exist. I would have much preferred them remake any other Sony exclusive game.
yeah,
Like almost
a lot of it just stems from my issues of it. It seems like so many of the criticisms of this game are being brushed off by a certain subset of people and even the devs because oh, it's The Last of Us, it's Sony, it's gonna be amazing. You know, they're totally free from criticism here. It's
uh
uh
don't even get started. There's just some insane people in Twitter replies. Like I brought up that I also didn't think that the Demon's Souls remake should have been $70, but at least that had the excuse of the fact that no one played it originally.
yeah, and you couldn't play it on the PS5.
And you can't, and then somebody crawls into the replies and says, well, The Last of Us was also a PS3 game, so that makes just as much sense here. I'm like, dude, seriously?
Yeah, didn't they
You
say
can't be serious, right?
didn't they say that like no one played the first Last of Us?
Oh, yeah, yeah. They got into a reply chain with somebody in my comment, and they were, well, nobody played the original Demon's Souls, so the remake made sense. He goes, well, nobody played the original on PS3, so now they have a chance to. Like, dude, you're either stupid or you're blind.
I feel I should establish because I went out of my way to just Google this. By April 2018, The Last of Us 1 sold 17 million copies.
I'm pretty sure the original Demon's Souls moved like 1 million, period.
It sold 1.1 more billion copies.
More billion copies. Oh shit! Oh shit! Is Ellie gonna morph out in this new version? It might actually be worth the money at that point.
Morbius is the secret final boss of the Elden Ring DLC.
Oh my god! You just walk into a fucking open field and it's like Morbius, the blood drinker. Then the Latin choir starts screaming. No.
Famous movie star Morbius.
Oh, absolutely. Fucking god.
Or no, Jared Leto Morbius. But yeah, it just a lot of it is just frustration around its existence, the reaction to it from certain people. Because, like, again, I should state, if you're excited for this, go ahead and be excited. If you're gonna buy
Oh,
this,
yeah,
go right ahead.
absolutely. If you are genuinely excited and you want to buy this day one, that is entirely on you. Don't let us stop you.
Yeah, exactly. But at least hear out the people who are putting up opposing arguments against it. And again, that's like a whole social media problem in general, how nobody wants to give the other side any time of day.
Absolutely. That's a problem that Twitter has engendered for fucking a decade now.
Yeah, it's just it's the whole thing with the remakes is just like, I'm annoyed with it. I wish they would have done something else. All the power to you if you are happy with the Last of Us remake, but it's like, because I tweeted it out immediately after it got revealed. God, why not Jack and Daxter instead?
That's basically how we can finish this in summary. Why not anything else?
Yeah, that because that's ultimately the. I feel like that's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, driving reason is that why this when
There were
there's so
so
many
many,
other artistic reasons to give another game a remake instead.
like, I know we've mentioned it a lot, but like, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart looked and played amazing. Now
Yeah.
imagine if that was Jack and Daxter 1.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
Just imagine, because that was one of the classic collectathon platformers of that entire generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That has way more merit than anything they're doing with Last of Us 1.
Yeah, and it's
We've stated our case plenty of times by this point.
yeah, I feel that we have pretty much driven the point home at this point. If you like it, you like it, but we clearly don't. But we're not against remakes in general, just why couldn't this have been something else?
In other words, please go buy Klonoa Fantasy Reverie Collection for every console you own.
Oh god,
They're pretty good.
I gotta wait for my copy of that from PlayAsia to come in. I really
Why
I'm
didn't they release a physical version in America? Bandai Namco, you suck!
Bandai, why have you been making so many good games lately? But then you gotta go and do that. The moral of the story is Klonoa is awesome.
The moral of the story is Klonoa had an actually good remake that you should definitely go and play.
Play Pac-Man World as well. I was gonna say
Also, Pac-Man World and Crisis Core. I hear those are pretty good.
I was gonna say play Pac-Man World 2, but then it's like, oh wait, no, hold on, no, we gotta wait for that remake to happen.
Pac-Man World in addition.
Yes.
Uh,
Alright. So,
Thank you so much for having me on this, man. This was really fun.
oh yeah, this was totally a lot of fun. I'd love to do another discussion video like this at some point. I feel like discussions work better for me when I have guests because it works a lot better to have someone to bounce off of. But do you have any final closing remarks you want to say?
Nothing much except the fact that even as a really diehard Sony fan, this is disappointing to me. I have gotten into so many Twitter arguments about this that venting about it is really cathartic, and I'm glad I was able to be on a video of one of my best friend's podcasts. This has been really cool.
All
Thanks.
right. Oh yeah, no problem, man. And I'll have a link to Nick's Twitter in the description below. Go follow him. He makes good art. A lot of Sonic. You will find he is very particular to Silver the Hedgehog.
Shut up.
What?
So are a lot of people. Shut up. I don't need to defend myself to you.
But yeah, thank you once again for joining me, man. And to anyone who is still watching, thank you so much for watching this far into the video. Tell us what you think of the Last of Us remake and remakes in general down in the comments if you like. Please be civil about it, I must stress. And
Whatever you do, Don't stab people.
No, don't stab people, please. But thank you once again so much for watching. I'd really appreciate if you would like and subscribe. That would mean the world to me. But yeah, that's gonna do it for us, folks. Have a great night, and I'll see you all in whatever my next video will be.